Hi.
Welcome to Swept in Secrets. Please don't forget to subscribe and comment for more interesting. I still remember that evening as vividly as if it happened just yesterday. It was one of those late spring nights when the air hums with possibility and the city lights flicker like secrets waiting to be shared. I had been living with my roommate, Dorothy, for nearly 8 months in our little apartment just outside Charleston. We had become close over time, sharing everything from bad takeout to heartaches, and even secrets we swore never to tell. That night, Dorothy had invited me to join her and her brother for dinner. I wasn't exactly sure why she thought it was a good idea. I hadn't met her brother before, but she had mentioned him more than once. His name was Franklin. She always described him as charming but stubborn, a man who carried both his confidence and silence like armor. The way she spoke about him made me curious, but I never pressed too hard. I hadn't planned on wearing that dress. Honestly, I didn't even know I still had it tucked away in the back of my closet. It was something I had bought impulsively a couple years back when I was still figuring myself out. It was simple, black, sleeveless, soft velvet that clung just enough in the right places. It made me feel like a woman who knew how to command attention, even if I didn't believe it most of the time. I slipped into it, looked at myself in the mirror, and for once, didn't feel the need to hide. When I stepped out into the living room, Dorothy gave me a wide-eyed glance.
Wow, June.
"You're trying to kill someone tonight?" she joked, her smile playful. I shrugged, laughing it off. "It's just a dress. You said it was a nice place." She raised her brow. "I said it was Franklin's idea. You'll see." I didn't expect Franklin to be early. I had barely picked up my clutch when the doorbell rang. Dorothy raced to open the door, her voice rising in cheerful surprise. I turned the corner and saw him. He was taller than I imagined. Broad shoulders beneath a navy button-down, dark slacks, and that kind of calm presence that made everything else fade. His hair was tousled like he had run his fingers through it more than once. But it was his eyes that got me gray-blue, focused and sharp. When they met mine, something shifted between us. I froze for a second. I don't know if it was his gaze or the way his mouth curved just slightly at the corners, but my breath caught. He looked at me the way no one had in a very long time, like I was something worth staring at. "Franklin," Dorothy said, tugging on his sleeve. "This is June. June, my big brother." He nodded. "Nice to meet you." His voice was low, smooth. I managed to say something. "What?" I can't remember, but his eyes didn't leave mine. Not once. Dinner was quiet, but it wasn't awkward. We went to a small rooftop restaurant near the water. Candlelight flickered against the breeze, and the smell of rosemary and grilled vegetables filled the air. Dorothy did most of the talking, laughing at her own stories while Franklin occasionally glanced my way. And every time he did, my heart raced a little faster. On the ride back, Dorothy dozed off in the back seat. I sat up front beside him. He didn't say much, but his hand rested near the gear shift, close enough that my knee brushed against it a few times. I told myself it meant nothing. Just coincidence. But when we pulled into the apartment lot and she didn't wake up, he turned to me. "I'll carry her in," he said softly. I followed him up the stairs. He was careful with her, laying her on the couch, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek with a tenderness that surprised me. Then he stood, and suddenly, we were alone in that dim room with nothing but the sound of her breathing and the ticking wall clock. "I didn't expect you to wear that," he said, his voice quiet but steady. I looked down. "Is it too much?" His gaze lingered.
No.
"It's dangerous." Something in me stirred. I don't know if it was the way he said it or the way he didn't move away from me. We stood only a couple feet apart, and I could feel the tension stretch like something electric. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the warmth rising at my neck. "I should go change," I said, stepping back slightly. But he moved closer. "Don't." I stopped. There was a moment, brief but loaded, when everything could have gone 1,000 ways. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to. His presence was enough to pull everything inside me to the surface. "I haven't looked at anyone like this in a long time," he said, his voice low. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something I didn't know how to name. A part of me wanted to pull away, to respect the unspoken boundary that came with being his sister's roommate. But another part of me, something deeper, more reckless, wanted to see what would happen if I didn't say no. "I noticed you the second I walked in," he continued, his eyes fixed on mine. "And I haven't stopped thinking about you since." I stepped toward him. My hand brushed against his, and his fingers curled gently, not grabbing, just waiting. The tension thickened. The room felt warmer. His hand slowly traced the length of my arm, and every nerve beneath my skin lit up. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. My breath came shorter, lips slightly parted. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, smell the soft scent of spice and cedar on his clothes. I tilted my face toward him, and for a moment, we didn't need to speak. "I should say no," I whispered. "But you won't," he said back.
And I didn't.
That night was a blur of lingering glances, near touches, silent moments where our eyes did all the speaking. We didn't cross a line, at least not physically, but everything between us had already shifted. Every glance was heavier, every word wrapped in tension. It wasn't what we did, it was what we didn't do that kept me awake long after I went into my room and shut the door behind me. I laid there in the dark, fingers pressed to my lips, remembering the way he looked at me when he said my name. And I knew it wasn't just in my head. The days after weren't easier. Dorothy had no idea. Franklin stayed in town for work, which meant he visited the apartment a few times that week. Every time he came over, I felt his gaze on me before I even saw him. Sometimes he brushed past me in the kitchen, his hand grazing the small of my back just long enough to send a chill through me. Other times, we said almost nothing, but the air between us pulsed with things unsaid. One afternoon, I came home early from class. Dorothy was still at work. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and found Franklin sitting on the couch, flipping through an old magazine. He looked up, that familiar intensity in his eyes. "I wasn't expecting you," I said. "Neither was I," he replied. I moved past him, heading to my room. But before I reached the hallway, he spoke again. "You looked beautiful that night, June. That dress that's been in my head." I turned slowly. He stood up, and this time, he didn't stop himself. He walked toward me with purpose, but not aggression. His fingers brushed mine, his thumb slowly tracing the edge of my palm. "I've been trying to respect the line," he said. I looked up at him. "What line?" "The one we crossed the moment we didn't stop looking at each other." This time, when he leaned in, I didn't move away. His lips brushed my cheek, soft and slow, not quite a kiss, but something deeper. I closed my eyes, letting the sensation wrap around me like a whisper. His hands stayed gentle, his voice softer than ever. "I'm not asking for anything," he murmured. "I just needed you to know." And that was the thing I did know. I felt it in the quiet moments, in the way my breath hitched when I heard his voice, in the way my skin remembered his touch. The weeks that followed were filled with secrets. We didn't cross any obvious lines, but we created a world in glances and half-smiles, in soft conversations late at night when Dorothy had gone to bed. Eventually, Franklin's stay ended. He left for Boston again, but not before leaving a letter on my nightstand. No promises, just honesty. No pressure, just truth. And a final sentence that stayed with me. "I saw you in that dress, June. But what undid me was everything I felt when you didn't say no." Even now, I sometimes slip that dress on when I'm alone. I let the fabric remind me of who I was in that moment, not because I needed someone else's gaze to feel alive, but because I had finally stepped into my own. And as for Franklin, well, some stories don't need to end with certainty. Sometimes, it's the not knowing, the ache, the breathless in-between that makes a moment unforgettable. Especially when your heart knew what it wanted, long before your lips could say it.